What's up YouTube community, Bernd here, welcome back to another video lesson. In this one we will focus on one of the most popular and often requested topics for this channel, sweep picking. You will learn a really cool picking trick that will make things a lot easier when it comes to directional changes. So with this lesson we will finally also focus on the creative aspect of sweep picking and not just on playing the same arpeggio shapes up and down faster and faster. This little picking trick that I want to show you has solved a lot of frustrations for me actually when it comes to working with more interesting and less predictable patterns. So let's begin with today's sweeping adventure right away. So to quickly summarize the fundamental sweep picking technique, we're aiming for one consistent down and upwards motion instead of going for an individual picking motion like alternate picking or down picking all the way for every single string. So instead of playing an arpeggio like that, for example, or like that, we are performing a motion that is very similar actually to arpeggiating chords. And the reason why we do this is because we want to perform the arpeggio quite fast, and that wouldn't be possible in this kind of way with alternate picking, for example. That's just much harder to do with all the string transitions. But of course there are also amazing players that get great results with arpeggios and alternate picking. So of course anything is allowed as long as it sounds and feels good to you. I personally just really love the fluid sound and feeling of sweep picking when it comes to that. But one of the downsides creatively is that you're always tempted to play the same arpeggio shapes up and down constantly. It takes a lot of time to synchronize your hands that way and to be able to play material like that. So of course you will want to show off your sweeping skills in your songs and solos. But to make that more enjoyable and less predictable for the listener, you will have to work with different patterns and directional changes in your arpeggios. And that's the point where it gets really tricky for your right hand. For today's exercise you will work on a very cool diminished lick. This is actually a pattern that I struggled with for a very long time until I found the right picking approach for it. Let's check it out together right now before we closely dissect the picking trick I want to show you today. As always, you can find the tabs, guitar profiles and practice backing tracks for this workout on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Bernd. I upload these really helpful files for every single YouTube lesson that I publish, and I also give personal and detailed feedback to student videos over there and help with creating the right practice plan for you. So in case you want to make more progress with these exercises or you need some personal feedback or assistance, make sure to check that out. So in case you didn't notice it, my picking approach for this lick could be described as a bit unusual. Before I found the picking approach that works best for me personally, I was accenting each beginning of those groups of 4 with a downstroke. So this is the picking pattern that I see more often with licks like that. So when we isolate it in just one position, I'm playing a downstroke, pull off, then I get into the upstrokes and downstroke for the accent, upstrokes, pull off and downstroke again for the accent before I move down. The big advantage I get from this picking approach is having a downstroke on the heavy accents, so it's a bit easier to stay in time. So I'm accenting the downstrokes now. But as you can maybe hear with those demonstrations, it's a bit difficult for me to switch between the strings correctly with this pattern. As you can see, my right hand is moving a lot and it starts to sound a bit messy at higher tempos. So it was always difficult for me to perform phrases like that at a faster tempo, but I really like the sound. But one day I decided to try to play this lick with upstrokes only. And while it did take a couple of hours to get used to this motion, I immediately felt that my right hand had to do much less work. So after including that in my practice plan and working on it consistently, I got some pretty good results. The one thing that is really important right here once again is the angle of your pick. That took quite a lot of time for me in that case, and I hope I can save you some practice time with this tip. So when I started working with this upstroke approach, I didn't make much progress in the beginning because I was working with a picking angle like that. But somehow it's much easier to perform this lick when I move my pick into that direction. As you can hear, the string transitions are a bit easier for me that way, and the lick starts up sounding a bit more fluid when I perform it faster. So this is picking angle number 1 that makes it a bit difficult for me to perform this lick fast. At slower tempos it's actually a bit easier that way, because I can move away from the G string to reposition here on the high E string. But at higher tempos this kind of picking angle is a bit easier for me as opposed to this kind of angle. So please always remember to experiment with different picking angles when you practice to the backing tracks that I uploaded on Patreon. Sometimes you can make tiny adjustments like that make your life much easier, and it's a bit different for every player because of the different techniques we develop over the years. And the final really interesting detail about this lick concerns music theory. As you maybe noticed already, we are working with the same shape across the neck and we're just moving it in minor thirds. And that is the beauty of working with diminished arpeggios and voicings, of course. So a diminished triad actually consists of 2 minor thirds stacked upon the root. So it could be seen as a minor triad with a lowered or flattened 5th. So diminished 7th chords, triads and arpeggios are often found in rock and metal music because of the cool dissonant sound. But the other really cool and very useful theory takeaway from this lesson is that you can actually move any diminished shape, chord voicing or arpeggio up or down in minor thirds across the neck, and it will contain the same notes. So once you memorize your very first diminished chord shapes or arpeggios, you can just move them up or down the neck in minor thirds, or just counting 3 frets in the beginning. That's the other, possibly even more popular reason why you can find diminished licks in all kinds of rock and metal songs. So essentially you can play all across the neck with just one shape, and that results in some pretty interesting licks and riffs. If you would like to dive more into the theory of diminished sounds, you can also check out the tutorial I posted about the diminished scale a while ago. Before I leave you to practice this, make sure to subscribe right now to join this guitar community today. Around 70% of you guys and girls watching these videos are not subscribed yet. That means you miss a lot of very cool material because you don't get notified when I upload new lessons. So make sure to do that right now and leave a like in case you enjoyed this lesson and a comment in case you have any further questions. Don't forget to download your tabs, guitar profiles and practice backing tracks on Patreon and get some personal feedback from me over there. And in case you want to support this channel and the making of more video lessons like that, you can also check out the merch on Teespring. As always, I left the link in the description below. I really hope that you have a great time taking your sweep picking skills to the next level. I will see you in the next video lesson. All the best and have fun practicing until then.